All right, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to this meeting of Finance and Corporate Services Committee. I am first going to begin by asking if there are any disclosures of pecuniary interest. Not seeing any. I am going to go on to read the delegation, because you do have a few delegations today. So 12 delegations. The city values and encourages participation and dialogue in a democratic process that occurs in council and committee meetings and through written submissions and correspondence. It is important that these interactions remain respectful towards other members of the public, staff, and council. In cases where dialogue is not respectful or a delegate interrupts councilors, staff, or other delegations, makes derogatory statements about the above, or uses hate speech or language that is considered harmful or defamatory, I will interject and you may be removed from the meeting. Last reminder, delegations are permitted to address committee for a maximum of 5 minutes, which will be displayed on the screens in front of you. When there is 30 seconds remaining in your time, you'll hear a small audio tone indicating that you do have 30 seconds left. And after your final 5 minutes are up, you will hear a second tone. And shortly after, your microphone will automatically be turned off. So please be considerate of your timing, okay? So with that, we're going to get into the first item, let's see, which is the artist in residence item, and I believe Mr. Rumble is going to be kicking us off. Good afternoon.
Afternoon, folks. So through the chair, on behalf of my colleague Caroline Varon, who's not able to be here today and authored the report, I'm really pleased to be presenting the result of a collaboration that her and I have been working on to try and enhance 2 different arts and creative industries programs that we work on, trying to integrate them to learn from them and create new and better results. So as we mark the 30th anniversary of the city's Artist in Residence program, I'm also happy to announce, just as a footnote to what we're here to do today, that the 2024 Artist in Residence, Ellie Anglin, has just wrapped up her publication, Ribbon, that was a result of her residency, which features more than 50 original artworks from a number of different local contributors in the artist community. I'll deliver a copy of that to all of you folks later on this week. And share more details about the distribution of that publication. Today, though, we're here to embark on the 2025 Artist in Residency. And as noted in the report, what we've done here is we've tried to approach a real experimental opportunity to develop and cite a permanent public artwork through the residency program. The money for that public artwork comes through the 1% public art policy, which Dune Pioneer Park Community Center became eligible for as part of its renovation in 2019. Part of what we're doing is we're trying to kind of intertwine the public engagement goals of the Artist in Residency and the public space improvement goals of the 1% program. And those 2 objectives really kind of align nicely with there being a new sort of blank canvas outdoor patio space at the back of that building after some further renovations to it last year. So the way that we've structured this sort of intertwining of the 2 programs is that the first 6 months of the residency is going to be dedicated to researching, developing, and finalizing a design concept for the public art installation. And the final 6 months from January to June next year will be dedicated to fabrication, installation, and permanent siting of an art installation on the back of Dune Pioneer Park Community Center. Of course, following consultation with city staff to make sure that we're good to go before anything lands in place. So it's my pleasure to introduce today the recommended artist in residence for 2025, who's come through a competition we held. Tara Cooper, who is going to talk a bit about her artistic practice and proposal for the residency. I'm going to preamble a bit to say that Tara's art practice embraces print, ceramics, film, installation, and book arts. Her subject matter draws from storytelling with an eye for graphic design, pattern, and poetics. She has exhibited across Canada, the States, and Europe, receiving numerous grants from Canada Council for the Arts, Ontario Arts Council, and the Kitchener-Waterloo Community Foundation. Tara is also an associate professor at the University of Waterloo and has a plethora of community engagement experience to draw on, working with various age groups. And some of you may recognize, I hope I'm not stealing all of your stuff, but some of it, yeah. Some of you may recognize a piece of work that Tara created with her partner, Tall Tales of Mill Street, at the Mill Station Ion Stop. That maybe give you a bit of a window into the sort of stuff that Tara makes. So, Tara is here to share more details about her proposed residency activities and how they'll connect to the final creation of the public artwork at the center. So, welcome, Tara.
Thank you.
Welcome, Tara.
And oh, easy. Okay, first of all, I'd like to thank everyone for the opportunity to share my proposal for Kitchener's Artists in Residence. This project is close to my heart. I grew up in Cambridge and remember going to Dune as a kid, so I'm very excited to work with the community at Dune Pioneer Park and to fabricate an artwork that will liven up their new outdoor patio. I often describe myself as a maximalist, a kind of everything but the kitchen sink maker. And what is at the heart of this approach is a love for craft, materials, poetics, and collage. The images depicted represent 4 different projects that have been showcased locally. The upper right mural, Taking Care, Caretaking, tells the story of medicinal plants and their ability to calm and soothe anxieties and help us get a good night's sleep. The one under that, The Ocean is the Original Mood Ring, was exhibited at KWAG. It really embraced craft in all its glory and included indigo resist silk screen prints, hooked rugs, ceramics, hand-blown glass, custom woodwork, xenotypes, a short film, even the metal hardware was forged by hand. I also made a piece for the exhibition Robotic Clay, which was at the Clay and Glass Gallery, and this is the image in the upper right. And the lower right image is a sculpture, the sculpture I designed for the Ion Stop called Tall Tales of Mill Street. Community engagement. So I've got decades of teaching experience, which not only includes my work as a professor at the University of Waterloo, but also earlier employment such as running workshops for families at the Art Gallery of Ontario and teaching art to children at a Montessori school. In 2017, I founded the program called SAIL, which stands for the Student Art Innovation Lab, and it's an outreach arts program supported through the Chalmers Endowment at the University of Waterloo. Each summer, SAIL hosts art exhibitions, children's crafts, drop-in workshops, high school field trips, and temporary art installations. We've had over 20,000 people participate in SAIL through partnerships with over 30 different community organizations. And to make all of this happen, I mentor and work with a team of 3 to 5 university students. The 2025 team is already up and running. And this weekend, they'll be making flags at the 30th Annual Service Center's Open House, party hats at the opening of Kafka's Biennial, and record collages at Waterloo's Grand Porch Party on Sunday. And the image is here. The one on the left is a pop-up poetry workshop I ran, and the one on the right is from SAIL, where we hosted high schoolers from Cameron Heights at the university. So the Dune Community Potluck Project. So the word potluck, or luck of the pot, as it was known in the 16th century, initially meant food for an unexpected visitor, but it gained momentum during the Depression as a way to share food resources. Stone soup, a well-known European folk tale, shares a similar ethos where villagers bring various foods to the communal cooking pot. Both of these stories underscore the power of generosity, how contributions from everyone makes for a delicious, nourishing meal. So employing this idea of potluck, my proposal has 2 parts. The first is a series of community-engaged hands-on workshops, and the second, a cutout collage of imagery and text based on content generated from the workshops that will be enlarged and then bolted as discrete objects onto the exterior wall that backs the outdoor patio. During the residency phase, I will facilitate 5 workshops that will be customized for different audiences such as kids, families, adults, and teens. Each workshop will have a different format: zines, recipe cards, accordion books, paper engineering, and use different maker methods like portable letterpress, collage, cyanotypes. However, all will share the prompts. What are you going to bring to the potluck? Do you have a cherished family recipe? And what's your favorite food and why? So based on the imagery and recipes generated from these workshops, I will design a set of cutout collages, including text excerpts to illustrate what this giant potluck would be for the Dune community. I will also research fabrication aspects like working with marine plywood, ceramics, acrylic, and metal made for outdoor signage, in addition to designing the layout. So the fabrication phase includes making the cutouts and preparing the fasteners for install, along with any needed coatings to make them durable for the outdoors. And I'm going to be on sabbatical in January, so I'm pretty excited because I can put a lot of time into the maker part of this and use the resources at the university. So yeah, that's it.
Thank you so much. I think we'll take questions of Ms. Cooper first. Questions, Ms. Cooper or staff? A comment? Councillor Singh, question of Ms. Cooper?
Quick
Okay.
question, if that's okay.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah. The quick question is more to quip that once you're done all of this, if you ever need an open canvas, Ward 6 is prime for you. I love your services. Everything you shared is exemplary. And I just wanted to kind of share something anecdotal. I think it's good for our new members of council around the Horseshoe as well. It's just a realization when you do something long enough, you tend to realize in some cases how wrong you were. When I first got elected, I was a little critical about that 1% policy towards a arts project whenever a construction project happened. But I've come to realize how important that really is to invest in community and how that lasts through longer perpetuity than perhaps that project itself. So it's great that you're going to put that, your contribution to Ward 4. Thank you.
Oh, nice, thanks.
Okay, thank you. There do not appear to be any more questions. I think Councillor Michaud would like to make her comment then beforehand. And Councillor Michaud, I'm assuming you'd like to move it as is in your ward?
Yes, I would like to move this. Tara, I was fortunate to be on the selection committee for this, and I just loved the presentation that you sent in. And the piece that I like the best is the sense of community that you're going to bring to Dune Pioneer Park Community Center. The residents are going to get involved, and I see this as it's in its fruition. When it's all finished, people will come back years later and say, oh, I did that, I put that piece, I helped create that piece. It'll just speak like a long legacy of art that the community will be able to go back and see. So thank you for this. I'm really looking forward to seeing it.
Yeah, and one of the things I was hoping is that, it's a potluck, so obviously for the opening, we can have a potluck. And it'd be amazing if it became this annual thing that people came back and have the potluck. And I'm hoping to, they have the community garden there, and I'm already thinking of other ideas of, just how to engage and kind of, expand the project beyond kind of the original proposal, just realizing all the things that the community already does. So,
yeah, and I can see that happening because it is a very engaged community center, and the gardening group are very engaged as well. So I think this will be a win-win.
Yeah.
So congratulations, and looking forward to seeing it.
Thank you. And finally, Councillor Schneider.
Thank you, Chair Davey. I just want to echo everything Councillor Michaud said. I love your enthusiasm. I can just see this community really reacting to that and being part of it. And I just love how our community centers reflect art and reflect their community. So thank you for being a big part of that. It's going to be awesome.
Oh, thanks.
Oh, sorry, one popped in here. Councillor Chapman.
Yeah, actually, I have a question for staff, but thank you, Tara.
Okay.
It looks wonderful. I just wondered, the approach you took on this this time around with the artists in residence coupled with the project itself. Do you see this as a way forward, or do you see this as a one-off, or How did it work at your end?
At this point, through the chair, at this point, it's a one-off. Even the most recent artist in residency was a bit of an experiment intersecting with the 44 Gaukel project. And so as we've reached this point where we're recognizing the residency program needs to evolve, it hasn't changed a lot in the time that it's been here. We're just trying to sponge what we can from experimenting in different ways with it before we come forward with a plan to continue to evolve it for years to come. So at the moment, I think this is a one-off, but we may learn that this is a really fabulous way to integrate an artist into a community center in a meaningful way and have some sort of result that improves the space at the end.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, and that concludes all the questions and comments. Just wanted to say, Ms. Cooper, you can tell we're all very excited to see your works. It has been moved by Councillor Michaud. Those in favor? And that carries unanimously. Thank you. We'll move on to the next item. This is the short-term rental bylaw, and I believe Ms. Vandergeld is going to be kicking us off. When you're ready, welcome.
Okay, good afternoon. We're here to follow up on the short-term rental licensing. Sorry, I went ahead here. The Housing for All strategy included an action to report on the feasibility and implications of reviewing lodging house rules while reviewing licensing options for other types of short accommodations that included short-term rentals. In 2024, staff proposed licensing lodging houses and short-term rentals by way of a shared accommodation bylaw. Council directed staff to separate the regulations for lodging houses while focusing on further engagement as it relates to short-term rentals. Regulations were separated by way of a lodging house bylaw that was approved in August 2024 and came into effect January of this year. As directed, further engagement and consultation was conducted in relation to the short-term rentals, and staff are proposing a short-term rental bylaw to regulate the estimated 800 short-term rentals currently operating in the city. Significant consultation and engagement was conducted in the last quarter of 2024, which included 2 in-person information sessions that were held in conjunction with the City of Waterloo. These were attended by approximately 40 people combined, primarily comprised of short-term rental owner-operators. An Engage Kitchener survey was also provided for those individuals who preferred to share their opinions outside of a public forum. The intent of the survey was to gather information on impacts, licensing regimes, and neighborhood integration. The survey had 581 contributors, with 82% of respondents were either renters or residents who lived in the area where a short-term rental is currently operating. A significant number of Ontario municipalities are moving towards licensing and regulating short-term rentals. The trend is growing, driven by concerns over housing availability, community impact, and the need for consistent standards. A comprehensive municipal scan was completed and approaches varied, with some municipalities opted for licensing, heavy restrictions, or simply relying on existing bylaws. The City of Cambridge has yet to adopt any bylaw relating to shared accommodations, whereas the City of Waterloo has chosen to license short-term rentals, but they have restricted them to an individual's principal residence. Survey results reflected a range of perspectives beyond those of short-term rental owner-operators, highlighting the importance of also considering the views of residents and renters in this process. Key insights from the Engage Kitchener survey included that 65% of respondents supported licensing short-term rentals, 51% of respondents reported a negative experience with the short-term rental operating in their neighborhood, 53% of respondents felt that operating a short-term rental was a business, and 61% of respondents felt that a short-term rental should include rental periods of 30 consecutive days or less. Through our engagement, staff heard short-term rentals worsen the housing crisis by decreasing the availability of long-term housing options, increasing housing prices, and creating competition for affordable housing. We also heard that licensing would encourage safety and accountability, that short-term rentals boost tourism and provide flexible housing options for temporary needs. We also heard that short-term rentals should only be operated out of a host's principal residence. And finally, that licensing may have potential challenges for small operators, higher costs, and decreased flexibility. Based on what we heard, staff are recommending modifications on what was originally proposed through the Shared Accommodation Staff Report. These include removal of bedroom limits, no cap on the number of days a short-term rental can operate per calendar year, incorporate a tiered licensing approach, have a streamlined application process. Licensing fees have been reduced while still supporting a cost recovery model. Staff believe that these adjustments resolve the majority of the concerns proposed by the short-term rental owner-operators, while still preserving the intent of the bylaw. The key reasons for regulation include public safety, consumer protection, and nuisance control. It also allows for neighborhood cohesion, allowing for enforcement and legal recourse when issues arise, including the ability to revoke or apply conditions to a license or issue fines. It also helps with data collection. Without licensing, cities have no reliable way to monitor how many short-term rentals are operating, where they are located, or how they are being used. Platforms like Airbnb and Vrbo have introduced measures such as age restrictions, party bans, and review systems. These actions alone don't fully address community concerns. In the wake of serious or tragic incidents, including those that occurred in Toronto, Ottawa, Fort Erie, and Montreal, municipalities are often left to step in, facing calls for stronger oversight and local enforcement. Through engagement, there was a strong preference for a tiered licensing approach. The proposed bylaw will include 3 license categories. First being the short-term rental company license. This will license platforms that market or broker short-term rental bookings for compensation, such as Airbnb and Vrbo. The second would be a short-term rental principal residence license. This would capture a person that's operating a short-term rental out of their principal residence only. The third would be a short-term rental commercial license. This would license a person that operates a short-term rental in a dwelling that is not their principal residence. The proposed application requirements will include basic floor plans that confirm minimum building and safety standards and will identify the locations of all smoke and carbon monoxide alarms. There will be a dedicated responsible person who can adhere to requisite response times in relation to the short-term rental. A guest handbook will be developed by staff and completed by the licensee. It will contain contact information for the dedicated responsible person, emergency and non-emergency services in our community, and reference materials associated with relevant city bylaws such as noise, nuisance, fireworks, and parking. Proof of adequate insurance coverage will be required, along with the applicable application licensing fee. The topic of insurance was of interest during our engagement sessions, and as a result, staff have consulted with Waterloo Region Municipalities Insurance Pool for clarity on this requirement, and staff had learned that as soon as you offer your property for rent on a home sharing website, your home becomes a business. That involves increased risk like property damage, injury, and liability. and standard homeowner insurance does not cover this type of rental activity. Insurance providers consider a variety of risk factors in determining the cost of short-term rental insurance, such as location and property, claims history, security features, deductibles, frequency of rentals, amenities on the property such as swimming pools. Staff continue to recommend this application requirement to protect all parties involved in short-term rentals, including the owners, renters, and the city. The proposed framework supports a low-barrier way to bring short-term rental activity into compliance with licensing requirements. It will improve oversight, accountability, and support public safety, allow for useful data collection to track trends, the impact on long-term housing, and neighborhood concerns. Public engagement has shown support for balanced regulation, and staff continue to recommend the approval of a short-term rental licensing bylaw. If approved, staff are recommending an implementation date of January 1st, 2026 to allow for system modifications, organization, recruitment and training of staff, followed by a public awareness campaign that will focus on new regulations pertaining to short-term rentals. Staff commit to ongoing monitoring to ensure that all aspects of the bylaw continue to be relevant and will make any minor revisions or undertake additional modernization as needed. And I will turn it over to questions.
Thank you, Ms. Vandergold. Actually, we're going to hold questions because we have a number of delegations. We'll hold the questions of staff until the end, so you can feel free to take a seat and listen to the folks that we have coming up here. The first delegate we have is Ann Lavender. Ann Lavender. Hello, Ann.
Good afternoon. And thank you for this opportunity to speak about the draft short-term rental bylaw. I'll begin by thanking city staff and in particular the manager of licensing, Kristen Vandergeld, for her work on this draft bylaw. It's always encouraging when it's clear that city staff and elected officials have heard the concerns of members of their community. And it makes me proud to call Kitchener my home, so thank you. I've reviewed the latest draft, and I'm going to end my presentation today with a suggestion, but let me first explain my concerns. I'm speaking from my situation, not anyone else's, but it's the same for the majority of individual hosts. The situation hasn't really changed in terms of the financial aspect of this, and here are the numbers. I'm retired. My total taxable income for 2024 was $42,000. This included $18,000 in net revenue from my short-term rental units. The rest was my CPP and my OAS. This $18,000 made it possible for me to retire from full-time work at age 67. I currently pay $2,400 per year per property for insurance that already provides $2 million worth of coverage specifically for short-term rentals. So that's a total of $7,200 per year because I have 3 units. The city is suggesting that it will issue a business license, and as a result of issuing this license, I'll be required to provide indemnification for the city through my insurer. In order to have insurance that will indemnify the city, I'll have to purchase commercial insurance, which will increase my total insurance costs from $7,200 to $19,500, effectively putting me out of business. That $18,000 has just been spent and more on insurance. So what's the big deal about one short-term rental operator going out of business? Well, a lot of people wouldn't give it a second thought. But there are ripples to this, and remember that I'm not the only one. The $18,000 that I'm currently earning makes it possible for me to volunteer in meaningful ways in my community. I deliver 2 Meals on Wheels routes every week in Cambridge and Ayr on Tuesdays and in Kitchener on Thursdays. I also drive a Community Support Connections client to her medical appointments every Friday afternoon. As well, I'm serving on the board of the North Dumfries Historical Preservation Society, and I volunteer to help local Airbnb hosts by co-leading our host group. None of this will be possible if I have to return to working full-time in order to buy groceries and pay my mortgage. But quite apart from that, thousands of guests to our community will no longer find suitable accommodation for their visits. We're not a resort community where hosts are charging $1,000 per night for stays. I'm lucky if I'm able to charge $95 a night, and there are unbooked nights every month and quiet months during the winter when almost no one is traveling. We pay property taxes, and if we have duplexes, we pay more than just a homeowner. We pay income tax on the rental revenue. We pay 4% municipal accommodations tax on every night we rent, and we get no benefit for this. No one's advertising our Airbnbs to tourists who are coming into the community, or at least not yet. So here's my suggestion. I'd like to propose that the City of Kitchener consider a different way of tracking short-term rentals. With a rental vacancy rate of 3.6%, which is higher than it's been since 1993, the need to reduce the number of short-term rentals has pretty much disappeared. If we're not going to be required to have our places inspected and the city is simply asking for plans and an assurance that our places meet current standards, and if it is the issuing of a business license that's going to cause hardship to hosts who have worked hard to create beautiful rental units, why not simply consider making it mandatory for all short-term rentals to be registered with the city? The city can still collect fees for this and at the levels suggested, and it would allow the city to keep track of how many short-term rentals exist. It would not require us to indemnify the city nor to purchase very expensive commercial insurance, but rather just to prove that we do indeed have $2 million in liability insurance and that our insurer knows that it's a short-term rental. I have lots more to say, but I'll stop there and I'll say thank you for hearing my concerns, and I'd be happy to answer questions.
That was actually perfect timing. One question, Mayor Verbanovich.
Thanks very much, Ms. Lavender, for coming in today. I just want to pursue this insurance piece with you because the data you're providing is somewhat different than information that certainly we've seen. And so I just want to dig a little deeper into what you're saying.
Sure.
So you're saying that in terms of the insurance you currently have, it specifically says that you can do short-term rentals as part of that?
Yes, and I paid $2,400 a year for that, for one property.
Okay. And, I mean, is that something that you can share with us to see that policy?
Sure.
So we can see that it actually
Sure, I can tell you who
references?
the insurers are. Cooperators is one and Premier Insurance is the other.
Okay. And then when you're saying that by licensing it, that is going to take it from 7,200 to 19,500?
It's going to take it from 2,400 to 6,500. But I have 3 properties, so do the math, right?
Yeah, no, I understand that. I guess,
Yeah.
I guess I'm just trying to understand that if it's already covering your,
Okay.
if it's already covering the short-term rentals, I'm just trying to understand what makes it go up the extra 4,100. The
Because
fact that you have to list the city as a co-insured?
That's right, because the city wants to be indemnified, and a homeowner's insurance will not indemnify the city. What if the city was digging up the road and the sewer system was damaged and there was a backup of sewage in my house? I would not be able to hold the city responsible. If a city tree branch falls on my guest, for that matter, I would not be able to hold the city responsible because the city has been indemnified. Now, in some communities, the municipalities have stated that if it's something that's related to the operation of the STR, then they want to be indemnified, but they're not asking for a blanket indemnification. But homeowners insurance, generally speaking, will not indemnify the city. They won't do it. because they want to be able to come back and get money back from the city for damages if something happens.
Right.
So my insurance will insure me and my short-term rental, but if the city issues a business license and wants indemnification, I have to have business insurance, commercial insurance. And even then, some of them will not indemnify the city. Mine won't. I'll have to find someone else.
Okay. Thank you. I guess I'll have some more questions for staff on this later on, and it may require us going into caucus.
Thank you.
Thank you, and just thank you. There are no further questions, Ms. Lavender. Thank you for coming in. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Just as a heads up to council and folks that are with us today, there's still 6 people in the queue to speak on this, okay? Next is Frederick Niddle. Is Frederick Niddle? Oh, Mr. Niddle?
I'm going to pass.
You're going to pass?
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much for coming in, though. Next up is Nadine Tabay, I think it's pronounced. Hi, Nadine.
Has it started? Okay. Good afternoon, councillors. It's a pleasure to be here today to see you all again and to be back to discuss the proposed short-term rental bylaw. First, I want to say thank you for everyone who put work into refining this bylaw. As someone who lives in Kitchener, who's lived in Kitchener my whole life, who loves this city, has planted roots here, and plans to continue building a life here for years to come, I really appreciate the chance to participate in the consultation process. I care deeply about this community and want to give back to the city that's given me so much. Now, I understand this bylaw is meant to keep neighborhoods safe, prevent conflict, and set expectations, and I support that. I'm a superhost on Airbnb, and I see many others in our community, homeowners who rent their principal residences or from a duplex or triplex. For a lot of us, that just means keeping our family together. Whether it's supporting aging parents, sharing spaces with adult children, or simply making ends meet under one roof. None of us are running a business empire. Personally, I follow strict rules, no parties, no unregistered guests, respectful parking, and I make sure every guest agrees to those before they arrive. Now, this helps me stay afloat in a time where inflation, interest rates, and housing costs are sky high. It also gives me the opportunity to invest in my future and provide not just for myself, but for my family at a time when that's becoming increasingly difficult and for many, nearly impossible. One of my biggest concerns is the licensing requirement and how it affects the insurance. While commercial insurance isn't directly stated in the bylaw, the indemnity clause often leads insurance companies to treat short-term rental operators as commercial businesses. So that triggers policies ranging anywhere between $4,500 to $5,500 plus per unit per year, and that's before the yearly increases by the insurance companies. But a commercial insurance policy doesn't make sense for a homeowner. It's something that really only applies to corporate short-term rental operations, not to residences renting out their homes. And yet, many hosts already carry home insurance that includes short-term rental accommodation coverage. That's not being acknowledged here. In Kawartha Lakes, hosts can simply show proof of their insurance, which includes short-term rental use. Other municipalities don't include an indemnity clause at all. Some even allow a signed declaration confirming coverage. A practical approach like this would make the most sense for Kitchener. And just to be clear, one bad apple doesn't ruin the bunch. Majority of us are responsible, respectful, and committed to following the rules. Another concern is the licensing fee. It's still high, especially when you factor in the additional insurance requirements. But more than that, short-term rentals fill a valuable gap in the city's lodging options. We encourage tourism, support local businesses, and give people a place to stay when hotels just aren't an option. We're looking at families here visiting loved ones, people with children, or individuals just traveling with their kids for sporting events. We already pay our taxes in the MAT, the Municipal Accommodation Tax, and we're happy to do that. But adding to this layer of cost and complexity discourages good hosts from participating in the system, even when we're doing the right thing. That's why I'd like to suggest a registration system, even one with a registration fee, which would hold hosts accountable and make the most sense. It would avoid the insurance complications that force homeowners into commercial policies and reduce safety risks associated with listing personal information tied to a business number. Because at the end of the day, we're not corporations, we're homeowners, we don't own apartment buildings, we're just trying to reasonably share our space and contribute to the city. One last question I want to raise is around privacy. What information will you be sharing with the public? I'd really appreciate some clarity on whether personal information, like our addresses, our emails, or even our phone numbers, would be made public through a portal created by the city. In today's world, that kind of exposure has real safety risks, especially for women and vulnerable individuals. And finally, I think it's important to recognize that the landscape of short-term rentals has changed. The urgency and volume we saw years ago has shifted. Platforms have added more controls. Fewer listings are popping up, and CMHC data reports from their 2024 rental market report that long-term vacancies have improved in Kitchener since 1993. Supply has increased, and it's no longer at an all-time low. So what I'm saying is that the bylaw still has time and space to adapt to that reality, to preserve the short-term rental market that fuels Kitchener and its businesses, and I made it. Gosh, thank you.
With like 3 seconds to spare, no less.
Thank you. Oh my gosh, started late. I lost 2 seconds, but I'm good. Any
are a couple-
questions? Sorry.
Yeah, there are some questions. A couple people in the queue for you. First off is Councillor Ioannidis.
Wonderful.
Yeah, thanks Nadine for coming in, and great presentation and good job on the timing. I guess I just want to hear a little clarification. So when you heard about what was being proposed and you'd contacted your insurance company, they specifically stated that this is now classified as commercial?
Yes, and it's specifically because of that indemnity clause.
Okay. Did you shop around at all?
I did. I contacted a few different people within this past week. I looked at a bunch of different bylaws and contacted a bunch of different insurance providers, and I asked other hosts who they're going with and whatnot. But ultimately, my current insurance provider, and that's why I feel confident and I came here today, covers short-term rentals. Otherwise, I would not be doing a short-term rental.
Okay, but when you contacted other insurance carriers, did they all state that as well, that this would be classified as a commercial?
Yes, specifically.
Insurance coverage?
Yeah, commercial insurance, but there's also that fancy tweak of the indemnity clause.
Okay.
Which just raises it up further.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Up next is Councillor Deneau.
Thank you, Chair Davey, and thanks for coming out today, Nadine. This is obviously the second delegate that has spoken today, and both yourself and Ms. Lavender mentioned, your frustration that you're going to be deemed as a commercial business. Outside of the costs of having to purchase insurance for a commercial business, what is your knowledge of what a commercial business is?
So my interpretation of a commercial business, I would look at personally apartment buildings, storefronts, businesses and plazas that offer frequently a service on a daily basis, right? Those instances make sense. But when short-term rentals were first introduced to the country as a whole, it became something new and different, innovative, as things happen, as time go on. And so my main thing is when I look at renting out my home, right, as a homeowner, I don't consider myself a business per se. Now, am I against this bylaw? Absolutely not. I stated that I support it. It's just that this insurance requirement makes it like a huge financial burden that if I were an apartment building, it would make sense. But I'm just a homeowner paying off my mortgage, not a business empire.
Okay, so would you consider yourself a business then, or no?
I mean, I don't have a business number with CRA because I don't make that kind of money. So, no.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
There are no further questions. Thank you very much for your presentation.
Thank you.
Up next is Christina Noon. Oh, that's okay. Okay, no problem. So Ms. Noon has declined to speak. Next, I have Aaron Jam, I believe.
Good afternoon, everyone. I am Erin Jam. I am a homeowner. I'm actually the very first short-term rental back in 2010, before Airbnb came about. I'm also a health scientist. So I have a question about how STR hosts or properties are being considered a company. Apparently, if you are a company, you will have to pay a much higher licensing fee. So I do see that there are three kinds of companies. I think one of the criteria was that if you have a website, or if you are being able to be booked directly online, someone can book directly online with you, then you are a company. These conditions are pretty arbitrary for today's world. You can pay someone $100, you can get a website. To get booking directly online, it's Shopify. It's very quick, and anyone with a bit of a 2 hours of the day, you can get that done. But among those who do have a website and can book directly, they're quite different. One is large conglomerates, international companies like Booking.com, Expedia, Airbnb. They don't own properties. They have huge amount of money to promote. Therefore, we have to book through them because we don't have any presence on Google. So they take the first cut, the first layer of, if there is any fat. They take up to 20% of our income. So they are truly a company. The second type is large national companies like Saunders. They own thousands of units. They may not even own those units. They manage these units, and they don't live locally. They don't contribute locally. They simply have resources to allow themselves to make money through local houses. The third kind is myself and many of my colleagues sitting here. We live in Kitchener. We contribute to Kitchener. We build the community. We don't just pay taxes. We are connected with the community, but we have a website and we can be booked directly. I don't think these three should be treated the same. If we are, then the moms and pops like myself are going to pay a huge amount of licensing fee just because I am a bit tech savvy. So that's something that I feel it's not a good way of distinguishing companies versus just hosts. Since I have time, I'm going to also mention the principal residence. There seemed to be a categorization of if you rent out your principal residence, then you are considered differently than if you have a couple of houses like Ann and I, where we don't live in there. If somehow non-principal residence rental is going to be treated differently, especially monetarily differently, that we have to pay more, we're going to turn off a lot of visitors of wanting to even rent from us. You don't want to live with your grandparents. You definitely don't want to live with your children. If you make principal residence as a type that, you're going to be treated with less of a financial commitment, well, you're basically forcing the travelers to live with someone. People want to have their own private place. I would doubt anyone of you here will raise your hand and say, when I travel, I want to live with someone I don't know. You want a private place. So the principal residence condition is unreasonable. It is outdated. The old bed and breakfast is to live with a grandma who's nice and cook you a meal. Nowadays, we want privacy. So I hope you do not consider principal residence type of hosting short-term rental is a nicer way. It is just a way, and it shouldn't be treated differently than those who have one or two houses that don't live in the residence. I'm also representing my husband, but I don't need to use up my own time, do I? Bruce Arai is the next person.
Sorry, it's 5 minutes per person, so your husband wanted to speak as well, or not?
I am representing him because he can't get here from work. He's an individual who's registered as well.
Okay, I guess I looked at the clerk. Is that generally accepted? Yeah, is he registered? Sorry?
Through the chair, the resident would have to be here to be able to address council. He would have another opportunity to address council at the council meeting on June the 23rd, if he's not able to be here today.
Yeah, so he'd have to attend today, but he would also be able to attend, oh, sorry, is your, oh, okay. Yeah, so he would have to be in attendance for you to get another 5 minutes, but you can always, depending which way this goes, you can come back. We're not finalizing the decision today, we have a council meeting where we finalize the decision, whatever decision we make. So you would be able to come back and, he would be able to come back and speak at that time.
So I had 30 minutes left. I could make his point in the 30 minutes.
You have 30 seconds left, yeah.
Hey?
30 seconds left,
Okay,
yes.
sorry, 30 seconds.
Yeah, so go ahead.
It's about indemnity. It says that there's a suggestion that we will have to indemnify the city against any repairs in public services. What is the legality of this? Can you force someone to give up their rights to public services? Will this be extended to all other home-based businesses? And if not, why not, such as hairdressers? And how do you decide who has to indemnify the city and who doesn't have to? We are paying taxes, and we, as short-term rental, pay more taxes. We pay the MAT, the municipal accommodation tax. We pay 4.25% more than anybody else. So we have already paid compensation for any increased usage of city stuff. So why should the city be indemnified of any of their own doing if it happens to be the city's problem, that they should not be. And indemnification is what costs us have to go through commercial insurance. And commercial insurance is what's going to be 3 times more than residential insurance. To answer the mayor's question, why the 2,000 that jumped up to 6,000.
Okay, Ms. Chan, I've given you much more than 30 seconds. I do appreciate your coming in. We do have one question. Councillor Deneau.
Thank you, Chair Davey. Thank you for coming out tonight to speak to us. How many homes do you own that you rent out for Airbnb purposes?
Does it matter if it is 1 or 2
I'm
or 5?
just curious.
I have 6.
Okay. And so would you say when you rent your homes out that you are a business owner?
I think if you want to define business, anyone who's making money is a business.
Okay.
So, but I am a rental business.
Okay.
I rent out. Most of my properties I rent out longer term. Some of them I rent out shorter term. So I am a residential rental business.
Okay. My last question, and I know you have, you mentioned that you don't particularly love the idea of having the 3 different tiers of Airbnb. So if you live there, that's one price point, and if you don't, that's another price point. And now I believe Hamilton and Toronto, I may be wrong, but their Airbnb licensing is they only allow if the person lives there on residence. Now, some other people may be able to skirt under the rules, but as far as I know, that is their bylaw. So, and there's various reasons why they wanted that. Would you agree, what is your opinion on the reduction of parties, of any incidents, do you think there's a benefit if you live at your primary rental spot that decreases the chances of anything happening?
I have 6 children. I have no control of them when they have parties at my home, when I'm away on a vacation. So I think parties and noise is a homeowner's responsibility to control. Right now, if someone has a party at my home, I have a very good relationship with my neighbors. They have my personal number. If they hear anything past 10 o'clock, they are to call me. I am to call the bylaw. I am to call the police. So I actually have a better control of my non-principal residents because I have eyes. I have neighborhood eyes versus my own private home. Whenever I'm gone, my children have parties and nobody reports them because my neighbors are not going to report my children. So that is not a point I want to use as a consideration of whether you are allowing principal residents or I mean, we have always allowed rentals. Before short-term rental became a thing, where long-term rental is a thing, we never rent out our home. We rent out a property that we worked so hard and purchased, and now it's our retirement nest egg. So we are never jeopardized or penalized for buying some properties to help ourselves to retire and to rent out these properties and keep them nice. So why is short-term rental suddenly being treated differently? That they should still be treated as residential rental, but you do need to abide to more kind of transient and fast-moving clients. And I have to, because if I don't, my neighbors report me. And my neighbors' report is the worst thing for me. So I keep my rentals very, very well controlled.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. There are no further questions. Appreciate your presentation.
It's done?
There are no further questions.
Thank you.
And the last delegate I have here is Michael Wold. Sorry. Oh, okay. Very good. So that concludes all of the delegates then. Questions of staff? Mayor Verbenovich.
Thanks. Yeah, I want to, I guess, dig deeper into the insurance issue. And I'm not sure if we have anyone here from legal, because we may need to go back into.
Ms. McDonald is behind you.
Sorry?
Ms. McDonald's behind you.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Thanks for that. So I guess I'm just trying to understand the information that's being shared with us here. Because on the one hand, we're hearing that we have an insurance policy. The insurance policy, notwithstanding we haven't seen it, but we're being told that it does include a provision that allows for short-term rentals. But the whole environment changes, it seems, the moment that we ask for indemnification. And wondering if we can get some clarification on that from what we know about insurance, because that is a big jump, and quite frankly makes it, if it's a few $100, I can deal with that. If it's several $1,000s, that's a bigger concern, and I don't think that's what we're trying to achieve. And so I'm wondering if I can ask the representative from the insurance pool to comment on that. Mr. Clark.
Thank you. Through you, Chair. I've reviewed thousands of agreements and certificates of insurance on behalf of our member municipalities. Indemnification clause and additional insured requirements are standard throughout. That includes private property agreements as well, such as easements that we enter into with our residents.
Such as which, sorry?
Easements.
Okay.
So somebody wants a parking variation, or if somebody has like the sprinkler heads that go under the city sidewalk onto the boulevard, when they enter into an easement agreement, they are required to enter into an indemnification agreement and list us as an additional insured in that regard as well. All of that is to say, in the thousands of agreements and certificates I've reviewed on behalf of our municipalities, I've never been told that it increases costs specifically for adding the indemnification or additional insured requirements, but rather the exposure to which that indemnification is applicable. Because obviously you're increasing the risk by doing those activities, then you're going to pay an additional cost for that additional risk.
Okay, but if I'm hearing you correctly, if the policy is already covering the short-term rental, are you saying that simply adding us on as a co-insured should not be adding significant amounts of dollars to it, if in fact the base policy is already doing that?
In my experience, that's what I'm saying. That being said, I have to qualify that with I'm not a licensed broker, so I don't do sales. But in my involvement in negotiating agreements and reviewing certificates, I've never had that presented.
Okay. On the issue of indemnification, and this is where I suspecting that Ms. McDonald will say we may need to go into caucus, but we're hearing about, other municipalities who aren't, who are handling it in a different way than what's being proposed here. Is it a viable option for us to consider, to consider asking the applicants to simply, provide proof of insurance that it shows that, but not necessarily require the indemnification piece?
Looking to staff to comment, they could comment on the implications of being able to do the work, but in terms of the liability, I think we have to go into caucus for that, but I'd look to staff to comment. Mr. Clark, do you want to? Oh, you're still queued in, sorry. Who wanted to answer that question? Nobody.
Okay. I'll leave it for now.
Park it for now. There are 4 people in the queue.
This is an area of concern for me.
Okay, very good. Councillor Singh.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, perhaps that is the necessary thing for us to do, to seek out some additional legal advice pertaining to the indemnification. One of the points that one of the delegates mentioned was also a blanket indemnification. So I understand if the indemnification is related to the activities being run as a short-term rental, or is the presumption that it is in fact an overall indemnification, in which case I would presume to think then that could increase the overall liability and then premiums go up.
There we go. Through your chair, the wording that's proposed states proceedings of any kind and expenses as defined above due or claimed to be due to the negligence, breach of contract, and/or breach of law of the licensee. So the example of city negligence causing a loss that the homeowner can then, their insurance company can no longer come after us wouldn't be applicable based on the draft wording that's proposed.
Okay. The licensee, and we would specify the licensee for the short-term rental. Okay. The other question that was raised is a home operation, a business, perhaps a salon. Are they required to have indemnification as well?
Chair?
Ms. Vandergill, yep.
Sorry, through the chair. Yes, a lot of our other classifications of business licenses require the same identification. So a beauty salon, for example, would be one that would be included. Food trucks, place of amusement, pop-up shops, market vendors. It's quite an exhaustive list that we require exactly the same insurance policy. It's in effect right now.
Okay, that's helpful. But the remaining questions, I think we need to dig a little deeper in caucus. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Stretch.
Yes, thank you. My question is around the definitions between commercial and personal residential. So how, as a city, are we defining those two?
Through the chair, the principal residence would be where that has to be your principal residence that you're renting out. So only one license would be applicable per person per principal residence. If you're buying multiple property that you don't live in as your principal residence, so you're operating basically a commercial operation, then you would fall into the commercial class license.
Okay, so an example of this then is, let's say you have 2 properties, a home and a cottage, and in the same city, and you want to rent out your second property while you're not there. That then makes, under the city, we are defining that as commercial.
Yeah, so you can only have one principal residence. So you could rent out your principal residence with the principal residence license, and you could rent out your secondary property with the commercial license.
Okay, and so I guess what I'm hearing from delegations is that by including the city on their insurance, that's changing the definition of their insurance just based on that, from regardless of if we have personal or commercial in our definition, it sounds like that piece is changing the definitions for insurance. Am I understanding that correctly?
I'll defer to Rob to answer that.
Through you, Chair, I apologize, but I can't answer that question. As I mentioned, I'm not a licensed broker. That's a private homeowner insurance question that I wouldn't be qualified to answer.
Okay, thank you.
Chair, I don't think it's the wording of the bylaw requirements, it's the indemnification piece that the hosts are claiming is changing their classification of insurance from home insurance to commercial insurance.
Okay, thank you.
I think I just have one question before I go back to Mayor Verbenovich. And I'll preface this by saying this has never been an issue in the ward I represent, possibly because I'm suburban. But could staff or members of the committee, for that matter, if we want to speak to your comments, can you tell me complaints that we've received, any complaints we've received from the public that aren't a bylaw issue? Any complaints that aren't covered by bylaw?
Through the chair, specifically, we couldn't be able to specifically tie them to short-term rentals since we currently have no idea where the short-term rentals are located and we're not tracking them.
Okay, so, but presumably there's been, okay, then maybe it's a question for members of council to answer because I'm still struggling somewhat with what this is going to achieve in terms of the community dislike for local rentals. Anyway, we'll deal with that later. Mayor Verbenovich. No problem. Go ahead.
Thanks, Chair Davey. I do want to just go further on the issue of principal residence versus commercial versus company. So I get it if I have one house in my name and it's where I live, that's $300 a year. If I have a second house and I don't live in there as my principal residence, you're saying it's considered commercial and that's $500. At what point does it become a company at $5,000? Is it if the name of the name of the ownership of the property isn't in my personal name, but in the name of a corporation?
Company license is meant to capture the platforms.
Oh, okay.
So Airbnb, Vrbo, Expedia,
Gotcha.
Booking.com.
Okay, great. Thank you. I just wanted to clarify that. So it's really, there's only $200 difference there. Then there's some question around how that impacts insurance rates potentially if it's a principal residence. I'm wondering if us calling it commercial is creating potentially a problem for those who have more than one home. I mean, is there a world where, we have principal residence and any residences where we can call it, residences other than the principal residence or something like that as a way of addressing that?
So I think if I'm understanding the delegates correctly, they're having this issue regardless if they're renting their principal residence or they're not. It's the indemnification piece that their insurance providers are claiming is making them upgrade to commercial insurance, not the wording of our bylaw. It's our insurance requirements and indemnity requirement.
Okay. So then I think the rest of it probably does mean we need to go back into caucus. So I would actually make that motion, Mr. Chair, that we go back into caucus.
Yeah, I'll take that motion then. Those in favor? And that carries. So folks, that means is we have to talk about some privileged information, so you have to go back in the room behind us. Typically will be about, I'd say 5 or 10 minutes, and then we'll come back out here afterwards and make a decision, okay? Okay, Madam Clerk, are you ready to continue? Yeah, okay. I think we are still in questions of staff. Councillor Ioannidis?
Yeah, thanks, Councillor Chair Davey. In listening to what I've heard so far, I'm prepared to put forward a motion to not do anything at all.
Motion to take no action?
Yes.
Very good. I will take that motion. Let's see anyone else in the, oh. Yes. So, Councillor Knight is just consulting. It actually creates a bit of an issue if you move no action. So it's more appropriate
just to let it die.
Just to move it, and then
just to move it.
And then if council's inclined to vote against it, if that's your intention.
Okay.
Okay. Okay. I do not see anyone in the queue for questions. So right now, Councillor Ioannidis has moved it, but he's indicated he's moved it so that he can vote against it. Is the motion that's been put forward. Okay. No, it's if you want the bylaw to go through, you would vote yes. If you want the bylaw to fail, then you would vote no. So it's just like a normal motion that's been moved. So I have two people in the queue. Are there questions of staff? Councillor Deneau? Sorry? Motion's already on the floor. You could do, go ahead.
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
I'd like to ask for a motion for a deferral, just to have staff come back with a little bit more information for us. So I think we can make an educated decision based on some of what we've heard from staff and our delegates.
Okay, and I think it's appropriate to, without Trans-Cox confidentiality, indicate what the additional information is that you're seeking.
I guess if we could speak to some experts in the insurance field to come back with some opinions on indemnification and
essentially the differences from what we heard from the delegates from what we've heard from staff.
Correct.
Very good. So motion to defer is on the floor. Mayor Verbenovich.
Yeah, so just on timing, I guess my question would be, how much time does staff think they need? Would it be able to come back for council next week, or would we want it to come back to the June 16th committee cycle, or directly to June 23rd council?
Ms. Vandergilt?
I think the June 23rd committee meeting would be acceptable.
June 23rd council, you mean?
Yes, sorry.
Okay, so I guess, Councillor Deneau, is that what your motion was?
Sorry, what was the date? I didn't hear that.
June 23rd.
June 23rd.
Yeah, as long as that gives staff enough time to come back.
Yeah. So I will support that, that motion. I think there are some additional information that would be helpful, so that a lot of work has gone into this by staff and by the community. A lot of issues have been actually resolved to a bylaw that I think people are to a bylaw that's addressed a lot of these things, but I think the deferral will help make sure we have the additional information necessary to make a good decision.
Okay, thank you. I will actually hold, typically when there's a deferral motion, there's no comment, but I'm going to hold that in advance if folks want to make a brief comment. As Mayor Verbenovich just did, I would accept that. Mayor, Councillor Ioannidis.
Yeah, the reason why I feel no action is appropriate, and it's really quite a policy thing here and the economic thing here. I don't feel that this program is able to support at least one full-time equivalent to administer and enforce this. I feel like it wouldn't be cost effective in recovering some of the funds just by issuing this program. So that's the reason why I'm putting forward no action.
Thank you. Councillor Chapman.
Yeah, thank you. I support the motion to defer and to continue forward with this. I've heard from residents who have great concerns with Airbnbs in condo buildings in particular. And I think that we have an obligation to legislate this in some way or other. So I'm fully in support of the motion to defer and to get more information on clarification on the license or the insurance item that has been brought to our attention here. So, yeah, I guess that's all I'll say at this point. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor O'Dooney.
Thank you very much, Chair. I also I will not be supporting this motion. I want to first say thank you to staff for the work that has gone into this. I have had conversations with residents in my ward about short-term rentals, and I would say probably the top two concerns that I've heard was just noise and parties. I would have loved something that targeted that more, but I feel like this is very extensive. I feel it's a bit much at this point. And I will not be supporting it, but if there's an opportunity for something in the future, I would love something that would tackle those two key areas specifically, rather than all the other areas that are coming up. But this is just in reference to what I've heard from people in my ward. I don't feel like the regulation is a direction to go. I just think it's those two areas that I would love to see something targeted. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Singh.
Yeah, thank you. So I wouldn't be supporting the deferral too. I think there are a number of factors that are at play right now that are moving me in this direction. Again, hearing some of the concerns from my colleagues, it's not something that I directly faced from the area that I represent. There haven't been a lot of inquiries or issues related to short-term rentals, but wanting to see exactly what are all the options out there, I supported the direction to go that way. We are quite a different overall environment economically in the housing sector as well now than we were even a year ago. Some of the issues that we were facing are becoming somewhat less so as to the availability. Rents are coming down as well. But that set aside, I would agree with what Councillor O'Dooney has said, is I like to see overall our bylaw enforcement to improve, because that's really a lot of the issues that do arise from short-term rentals. It's related to noise, or if property is not being kept properly. I think that's something that we can address through the bylaw department, and I think that's something we need to continue on looking at through our budgeting process, how we can have more teeth and have more or basis of enforcement that can improve overall aspects of concerns in our various neighborhoods, as opposed to just this one specific issue, which, as I said, hasn't been an increasing problem in the area that I represent. So I would be more inclined to support what Councillor Ioannidis is putting forward, that we choose to do no action. And no action does not mean that we don't care, that we don't want to do anything in the future. It just means that it's not necessarily an imminent issue at the moment, but again, something that we can continue on being vigilant. And perhaps if this is a problem that does arise and is increasing, we have the data that's already in play. We have the information that our staff, and I want to compliment them, all the extensive work that they did in inquiring and actually trying to put together a well-versed bylaw. But again, I think it may be an overreach for the time.
Thank you. There are three people in the queue. Councillor Michaud.
Thank you. I will support a deferral just for the purpose of gathering more information. I certainly empathize with the owners of the Airbnbs and the concerns they have around the insurance costs, and I'd like to, to get a deeper dive into that to see if there can be anything done. I do think that there is some validity to this report that. I'm not saying that all the short-term rentals are a problem, but I have heard in my ward that there are some problems in certain areas, and so I really think that I wouldn't want to throw this baby out with the bathwater. I just think we should do a little bit more deeper dive in this.
Thank you. Councillor Stretch.
Thank you. So I'm not against regulating this, but I do think timing matters, so I'm leaning towards not supporting the motion on the floor.
Thank you. Councillor Schneider.
Thank you, Chair Davey. So much work has gone into us. Thank you to our staff for looking into us. Thank you for our delegations who came in to speak. And one of the things that I recall from the original, bringing this forward originally in the delegations, saying that, this is a very well self-regulated industry. I know if I want to rent a property, I'm going to look for the super host. And I think that so many, as we've heard even today, they want that notification that you are certified as a super host. And I mean, there's not going to be anything that's going to be perfect. There will be issues, but I think adding too much and adding too much cost and too much oversight is just a little bit of a little too onerous. So I agree with Councillor Ioannidis.
Mayor Verbenovich, you've already commented, so briefly, please.
Well, yeah, just briefly, because I was trying to avoid making any comments earlier, but then you opened the floor to them. And listen, this has been an issue that certainly I've heard about as mayor from people around the community who have expressed some concerns around it. I know a few of our colleagues have experienced more of it than others in terms of what they heard in their own wards. I do want to acknowledge all of the work that has been done by staff and by those in the community to get to something that is reasonably seen as acceptable now and as a reasonable check and balance to the system. The big issue here is trying to work through the insurance piece, and we clearly don't have the information here to make a good decision on that. And so that's why I do think that the more prudent course of action would be to, after all this good work's been done, is to take a little bit extra time. I mean, this would have had to come back anyway on this next week, on the 9th. We're saying it'll come back on the 23rd. Take that little bit of extra time, get that information, and then council will ultimately make a policy decision with all of the information on the table, as opposed to making a decision in the absence of that.
Thank you. Councillor Johnston.
Yes, thank you, Chair. And, I could have gone either way on this as well. I do think it's important, though, to have a circle back. We have had staff go this far and provide us with a little more information that we're looking for. I think around the insurance issue. I do think, too, that we have had, maybe not me in particular, but I know different wards have had complaints from residents with regards to noise, the upkeep of properties, et cetera. And I think that piece is an important piece that whoever said throwing the baby out with the bathwater, I think thank you, Councillor Michaud. I think that we do owe it to the community to take maybe a deeper dive into that piece, because we had a delegate tonight who said that, if there's problems, they're relying on bylaw to handle their issues there. There's a cost to that as well. And so I think that it's important for us to take a further look into this, ensure that we're putting enough staff resources. Maybe it's not a full-time person on the licensing piece. Maybe it's more work on bylaw. Let's take a deeper dive into it, and then we'll know that we've done all of our due diligence around it first. Thank you.
Councillor Deneau. Go. Sorry. 1 second here. Go ahead.
Thank you, Chair Davey, and thanks to staff, and thanks for the delegates for coming out, and I appreciate the comments that my fellow colleagues have made. And I'm the one that put the referral motion in, and I don't believe we have all the information. So it's tough to make a decision on 95% of the information being given, not 100%. And obviously, there's differences of opinions from our delegates and some other potential people who give their opinion, but we don't have all the information. And this is a normal thing in communities now, that they are regulating and they are licensing short-term rentals, because it can have negative impacts on our communities. For people coming from out of town, not necessarily respecting our rules of what we think is deemed appropriate. I'm not saying it happens all the time, but it does happen. We have a lodging house licensing agreement. What's the difference between a long-term rental lodging house having a license to operate safely versus this? We're still putting, I think, there are people who are always going to be inherently at risk, whether it's a long-term rental or short-term rental. And I think it's on us as council, as a city, to make sure that hosts, short-term, long-term, are adhering to some of the policies and the rules that will make their visitors safe. And so, again, we don't have all the information yet to make an informed decision. And I would ask that, that we wait until we get 100% of the information, not 95% of the information, to make an informed decision, because that's what people expect of us. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Chapman. You've already okay, recorded vote's been called. Okay, everyone's made comments. I'm going to make a few. First of all, I want to thank Ms. Vandergeld. I thought the report was great. I thought the research you did into it was great. And I just want to remind committee as well that if we don't support this, it's not that we're going against staff. Staff simply brought forward what council requested. And now that we've had all the information brought to us, we are at liberty to make a decision whether we support it or not. I won't be supporting it. I won't be supporting the deferral either. And I don't really see that as not having enough information. The reality is the only information that we've asked for is whether it's a few $100s or something like that in terms of additional insurance, or thousands of dollars, as the delegates have suggested it would be. Whether it's the higher or the lower, it does not make one bit of difference in the decision that I would make that we should not be going ahead with this. We shouldn't be hiring staff at this time for something that, in my mind, as a matter of fact, I was waiting for someone to tell me what this would solve that isn't covered by bylaw already. Everything that we've heard in terms of noise, et cetera, is a bylaw issue that bylaw can deal with. I do not see this solving anything with respect to any concern or complaint that we've heard to date. What it really does is what government sometimes needs to make sure we don't do, and that is add another level of bureaucracy and cost on these people. And whether it's, another $100 a month or another $300 a month, I just don't see the value in it. So I will not be supporting the deferral, and I will not be supporting the bylaw. Not to say that I never will. If there does come a time that it can make an actual effect in the future, I could see myself supporting it then, but as it stands now, I do not see the value. So how this is going to work, guys, is a reminder with deferrals. So the motion is on the floor, and the motion to defer has been put forward by Councillor Deneau. If you vote yes now in favor of the deferral, that means staff will get that little bit of information back, come back to us, and we'll make a final decision on June 23rd, which I would also remind committee is our last council meeting before the summer break, and will be a busy time. If you want to deal with this now, as I do, then you would vote against the deferral now. And a recorded vote has been called for both by Councillor Chapman. So, recorded vote on the deferral. And it looks like the deferral carries. I didn't see how people voted. There we go. Yes, the deferral carries by a vote of 6-5. Okay, so folks, what that means then is we will be dealing with this again on June 23rd. You are welcome to delegate again, but only if you bring new information. Please don't delegate saying the same thing over again, because we'll have that locked up, okay? Thank you so much for coming in, and that concludes Finance and Corporate Services Committee. Thank you.